Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Bad Boss with Anya Soto. I am so excited for today's show because I have Scott Levin, who is the founder of San Diego Family Law Mediation, and you have to check him out. He has a LinkedIn account, he does live videos. That's why I wanted to bring him. I reached out, we know each other through a networking group. I reached out and I was like, oh my God, can we talk about mediation and bring this into the corporate environment? So, just to remind you, I'm a founder of Culture Crafters. We do offsites for leadership team. I coach and train managers and supervisors. And for me specifically, you might be wondering, what does mediation have to do with the corporate America or a corporate environment? Most of my coaching one-on-one conversations are around managing conflicts, managing different personality types. We often see leaders, whether you're a manager or you're a CEO of a company, where they would have two leaders and they don't want to work together. They hate each other, they annoy each other, they piss each other off. Their communication style, and you look at them, they're both high performers, they're experts in what they do, they're really brilliant, but they can't figure out a way to work with each other. That creates a lot of inefficiencies, drama, toxicity. So, Scott, I'm so excited to just, hear your perspective and learn from you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anya. I'm so happy to be here. It's so great to see you, and I'm hope to say something that matters to somebody.
Oh yeah, we've talked a little bit behind the scenes as always, and no, yeah, it's gonna be really good, guys. We're gonna talk about power dynamics. We're gonna talk about gender roles. So because this is a bad boss show, right? And I created the show to say, okay, here's what a bad boss would do, and here's what a good boss would do. And so I'm gonna give you an example, a very real example right now. I have a CEO of a company that is a fairly large company who has two senior leaders that have very different styles, that are both kind of fighting for their self-worth and their intelligence, and they know how things should be done, complete opposite worldviews. And this CEO comes to me, so the bad boss would say, guys, you need to figure this out. I'm done with your bullshit. Like, this is not high school. Go figure it out. What would a good boss do?
Well, there's really like two styles of potential good boss, like kind of intervention from where I sit, right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, I think it's if they're coming to you at that point, they obviously have tried to resolve things. Like, people that hire me, they're divorcing. And if they could figure it out themselves, they probably wouldn't, be seeing someone like me. So, but I think the same kind of objectives in a mediated divorce kind of are would be found in mediating a conflict resolution at work, which is most of my clients have to have an ongoing relationship. Like, they have kids together, they're partners in the raising of those children, and so their relationship and ability to communicate and ability to conflict resolve is important into the future. If it wasn't, then they could spend 200,000 and fight through lawyers and do the whole thing, because what's the downside of having? They're not going to have an ongoing relationship either way. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But
Worst case scenario, it's FU, and it's like we have enough money to throw at it.
yeah. So in the work setting, a good boss has really kind of two options if they're going to intervene. One is to kind of approach a mediation in the sense of understanding where the parties are coming from, listening to both of them together, talking things through, helping each side hear the other person, and kind of promoting and facilitating an environment in that mediation where they kind of propose their own solutions. So encouraging them, giving them kind of coming up with ideas, idea generation, making sure that the person's not just waiting for the other person's mouth to close to take a breath, but genuinely absorbing the information. So like that's kind of the main style of mediation, and it probably in a lot of respects is like what would be the smart play to start. Again, though, in the work setting, you have competing, you're all working for the same goal, of supporting the business, but people compete in corporate America,
They have
right? I mean,
different
that's it's
agendas. Like my agenda is very different from you, and they could be conflicting priorities.
yes. So the other style that might come into play is where someone's kind of making a ruling, like they're listening to the points, they're evaluating them, and they're saying, this is why I disagree with you, this is why I agree with you. And they're kind of like, there's not a ruling in the court sense like there is in a divorce mediation, where I'm saying, okay, you really want me to make a ruling, here's what I think of the strengths or weaknesses of your argument. Now the downside of like that ruling, of course, it's very like, a boss makes decisions, and again, that's great. But if you're now dealing with interpersonal context and relationships, if I evaluate someone's argument and then I reject it, the risk is that person now thinks I'm on the other person's team and against them. And how do you think, does that have an implication to the business and the success of the business or their roles ongoing beyond that decision? I would think that it could very well.
And also from HR perspective, right now we have this kind of threat of favoritism, injustice, and being accused, right, of being on someone's side. Yeah.
God forbid, like the next week that person invites the one that they ruled in favor of to lunch, or got them a coffee when they were at Starbucks.
Yeah, that's it. It's over.
It's going to be seen and heard, and it can be eating away at the culture, I think.
Yeah. So how would you prevent it, right? Because I use a language sometimes I would recommend, right, that you have to establish that you're a transparent leader. That's one. I don't take sides, and I'm not going to meet with you one-on-one, because what those people do, they'll say, hey, can I have 5 minutes with you? Can I have 5 minutes with you? Can we have a meeting? And I will establish that I will not meet with you one-on-one. If you want me to mediate, we're going to meet all together, all three of us.
That's step 101. Now you're establishing that neutrality. Yes.
Yeah, so you like those I'm just thinking, like, there are many ways, right, to show that I'm impartial. And I do believe that sometimes as a leader you have to say that, okay, I've heard your point. I do love the like kind of like strengths and weaknesses. I'm like, okay, like I'm curious, right? Show me how you see the world, show me why you see the way you see things. I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to listen to you. And this is where I think as a leader you might have to at some point say, this has a huge impact on the business, and here's how we're going to move forward, and here are a couple of options.
And I think that a couple of things you said are exactly in that way. Always have the back of the business. If you're worrying about the business as the number one, then over time your decisions and the things that you decide upon or the things that you say, people will trust that you have the business, you have the business's back above, relationships, or above interpersonal conflict or comment, all those things. You always think of business number one. Over time, people will respect that. The other thing is, when you're actually intervening in a situation, there's a history, and people want to share that history. And you could spend 3.5 hours hearing about a history that has nothing to do with the problem. You have to limit. I mean, I know that people like to talk, but you're not their psychologist. And this isn't about learning how, getting your feelings out.
Came to be, 7 years ago and 5 years ago and 4 years ago.
I'm doing my work and people start talking about 2009, or remember when your mother did this to, like, that has nothing to do with where we're at. We know we're here. And I know there's a history that I'm never going to understand, and a judge would never understand, or the judge would never even want to understand. So we're here. What are our options to solve the situation? Let's idea generate. Let's be creative, and let's be future focused. And the less that you accept from either side, that kind of the drama storytelling, I think the better off you're generally going to be.
So what is a language? And I find it really helpful. What is language that you would use to kind of bottom line when someone goes on and on and on and on, right? And it is important for them to be heard. Could you give us a couple of like examples of sentences you would use to like stop them?
Well, really, I mean, it's I want it. People sometimes have to get out their feelings about like so that they can move forward. So I'm not going to shut down. I'm going to kind of evaluate to see where we're going. But like, yeah, if we're, I'll just say, listen, I understand there's a history. I know that you want to share that. Today is not about that. Today is about understanding what the issues of that we're dealing with are, and then kind of game planning and coming up with ideas
Yeah.
for how you guys think we can handle those things. And potentially we could talk about that history or what caused some of the disputes that you're having in another session.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about a power dynamic. I know we talked a little bit about gender roles, and obviously, as a woman, and I do a lot of work around diversity and inclusion, they are definitely gender roles. There's definitely different standards for how men handle conflict and how women handle conflict. There is different expectation. Women are called bitch often at work. They're like, well, she's a bitch. She's angry, even though we might be acting exact same way like as a male counterpart. And then there's, so let's start with gender roles. Is there any, like, how do you mediate that where somebody would say, well, she's a woman and she's supposed to be empathetic and she's supposed to be this, or he's a man, he's supposed to be a provider, he's supposed to like pay for me for the rest of my life? So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, gender roles are certainly, they can differ. I do a lot of same-sex couples, and also I have a lot of clients where, traditional roles. I mean, I'm not traditional these days, but of course, like going back to versus 1960 to now, I have a lot of clients where, where they're, a husband-wife situation, and wife is very successful, and husband's more stay-at-home. And that reverses kind of that dynamic. And it's really interesting to see, exactly what you're talking about, happening. Like people have, I see the people acting the same exact way, like the higher earner versus the lower earner, but it's reversed in a case. And now you're right. She's a B and he's a, pathetic. And it's like, if that was reversed, those things probably wouldn't be said. I guess, how do you see, I have a question for you. How do you see if there's the decision maker, the mediator, or the CEO, or the person that you're kind of pointing to make a decision? How do you think that differs if they're a man versus a woman?
Ooh, I think actually women can be even more toxic. That's what I see. I did a whole workshop with bank executives, and it was called feminine. We call it about toxic masculinity. It was about toxic femininity. And
Mm.
it's like, I actually think that, again, because, so there are a couple of reasons why, right? Historically, I feel like women have to prove themselves more. Like, no matter who you are, like everybody assumes you have a boss. One. Second, we have to prove more. I work with a lot of blue collared, let's say, for example, and it's like in the construction, right? It's like, or if you are interested in IT, they're like, are you really? Or sports, which is not like male dominated industry. You have to prove yourself 5 times more that you're actually intelligent enough, understand it enough. Like, talk about like guns, for example, right? Or yeah, sports is a good example. So it's women, I think they're more aggressive because they have to fight more to even be in a game.
Mm.
And then I think also I like to say we became better men than men, which is controversial, but
Mm.
we never had role models of feminine leadership, which I believe can be intuitive, can be empathetic, can be about building each other up, but we never had those leaders. So if you're talking about someone who's been in the business from the 90s and 2000s, like our leaders were very abrasive leaders. And we're like, okay, I guess that's who you have to be in order to lead. So that's my long answer.
What if I were to tell you? Would you be surprised if I were to tell you that in family law, which I know is a different matter, but the if you're representing if it's a female male divorce situation, which a lot of them aren't, but if you are and you're representing your client is a woman, that you're hoping for a male judge, not a female, most of the time.
No, I wouldn't be. I went through a very expensive divorce. So when you're talking about 100 and $200,000, I went through a custody battle that was
Oh man.
international between two countries. I was a woman, and I will not be surprised because I had all male judges. We actually had almost 8 different judges in a period of
Wow.
8 years. And and then I had a female judge who actually, she didn't rule against me, but she ruled fairly. But it felt like she ruled against me at that point. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think. And why would you say that? That they
I
would
just
pick
think
a female
that's
judge?
just when I was litigating cases, I used to be a litigator. I mean, that's just like the general consent. Of course, all the cases are a little bit different,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, that's just like kind of the first thought you have when it's kind of a known
That a
thing.
woman would rule in the woman's favor.
No, against. They're
Against.
harsh. They're harder on women. Can be harsher or not. I don't know. It's kind of an unknown. It's kind of a not said thing that I'm saying on this podcast, but
Yeah, yeah, but it's good. We're talking always about assumptions, right? There are
it can be
assumptions.
harder. This assumption is like when a woman and a lot of the judges are not, they're not 30, right? They're 55, 65, 70. And when they're talking to someone that has a traditional role that, like, they can be harder. Those people did not stay home and they made decisions that, led to a successful career. And they, if they could do it, anyone could do it. And,
Yeah,
and,
I
and
believe it. I'm telling you, there's something about a whole, we talk about history and dynamics, right? For 25 years, I had to prove that I'm worthy of being a judge. And it's always on my mind to not be falsely accused of favoritism or anything else. So I'm telling you, like, I have to work double. Like, I always have to be like so conscious who's
I
going to say what.
think that's a
And
big
everyone
part.
is following me in the press, and they're like, "Oh, how is she gonna rule? Because she's a woman."
Yeah.
Right? There's always that voice that they think about.
I actually, my dad used to be a lawyer a long time ago, but he had, for whatever reason, in the 70s, there were very few women in law, like early on in the,
Yeah,
50s, 60s, 70s, very few women graduated law school. And then obviously, now it's more than 50%. But my dad had a law firm of like 6 women in him, and all 6 women ended up becoming judges. So like once every 3 or 4 or 2, 3 years, they would have like a dinner at my house, where he would have them over and just to kind of talk about the
yeah,
good old days. And I heard a lot of the conversations, and they're what you're talking about. Like they would talk about having to prove yourself and have to do, you had to always be careful because, like, are you on
mhm,
all the things you're saying? And those are things that, I think some of the decisions that a man makes, are irrespective of those things. It's not a part of their
yeah.
thought.
That doesn't drive your decisions. You're not like, "Oh, they're gonna like question my intelligence," you know. But what's sad is you. It sounds like you were still a child when those conversations were happening, and it's still true in 2024.
Mhm.
And women, and I work with a lot of, and you know what's interesting, so I had an executive meeting, diversity and inclusion, for a large automobile industry. We had about 25 executives in the room. I'm not going to call the name. Five maybe out of 25 were women.
Yeah.
And I went in thinking that men will give me a hard time. They would push back on inclusion, they'll push back on diversity, because like we were going in, it was not already kind of like a good scenario. But you know what? It was women who gave me a really hard time. Women were angry, women were pissed, not with me, but like the situation, the industry. Why is it, does it feel like 5 women is enough out of 25? Why does it feel like this is progress, like if they're 50-50 population? So it's interesting, like I see it and I'm like, I can resonate that. I know you're angry. I'm angry too. Trust me, I had a horrible divorce. I'm angry at a lot of things. But like you said, what is our shared objective? And does it serve the business? Does it serve our community? Like, this is, I think, where a lot of us make mistakes, where we think we're rational human beings, but it's our emotions that drive decisions. Like, I am not rational when I'm in your office talking to my ex partner. Like, there's nothing rational about me. This is not my best self. Trust me.
No, it's not. You know, the old saying is that you find good people at their worst in the work that I do.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's okay to have space, but I think we need to evolve from our individual hurt to seeing collective progress and seeing what is good for the collective. And that's why I hope, like, I have two daughters that I hope by the time they go to work, they will have a lot of really good examples of feminine leadership where it's not
I hope
cutthroat.
so.
It's not throwing each other under the bus. It's not that. It's about,
Yeah.
like you said. So it brings me to, I know we're at 20 minutes and I promised you it's going to be 20 minutes. Last question, which is like a question, but
Yeah.
it's about power dynamic. You've touched upon a little bit, right? When there's a high earner, a lower earner in a corporate environment, it would look like a power dynamic could be like, I went to school with the CEO. We've known each other for 25 years. It could be, I have access. I'm a CFO. I have access to budget numbers, information, decision making. Different, right? We can be both, let's say, at an equal kind of like title position, but power dynamic is something completely different. I have a lot of influence. Everybody loves me. I know you're not going to fire me. It will have a huge impact on the business. I'll give you an example. I think also the more intellectual we go, and I'm thinking of like higher ed, biotech, the less empathy, compassion, and emotional intelligence we have. So with the power dynamic, right? How are you helping to navigate and equalize it?
Yeah, when there's a big power dynamic, for me to do my job, both people have to concede that exists. So
Acknowledge it.
because what happens the objective is to come to resolutions, but but the person who is on the downside of that power dynamic has fear that that the conflict resolution process is going to be used to steamroll them.
Yeah,
they're fearful to engage in it, but they're kind of like being dragged along. Come on, we can do this. But like we can figure this out. So what the person in the mediation role has to do is they have to prop that person up. They have to get the information. They have to even the power dynamics so that the person feels supported and capable of having, feeling like more even-footed to have like substantive negotiations and discussions. Yeah. But if the person who's on top of that power dynamic doesn't concede to it existing, then it will look like the person who's supposed to be a neutral is propping the other up. And really, that person's not doing that. What they're doing is propping them up in
to
order
the same level, not above.
So that we can engage in the discussions, because you can't really engage in negotiation until that equalization has happened. Because this person's going to be like, here, I'm offering you a sweetheart deal. I'm giving you X, Y, and Z. And
you don't even deserve that, but out of my generosity of heart.
Just so you know, if we don't do it this way, it's going to get a lot worse for you. And this person's like, well, I have no idea if that's good or bad. How am I supposed to evaluate that? I don't have the information. This isn't. I can't respond substantively. Before that takes place, we have to prop up. And what can happen is if there's not a concession as that exists, this person will think you're on the other person's team. And again, that impartiality is key to being to making decisions that again are made for the betterment of the situation, the business or the relationship, whatever it is. But that people need to know that you're on team, business and not on team person. And
I love it.
Back to it.
Oh, that's so good. So I'm going to summarize it. One is acknowledge the power dynamic. And I always say, name the elephant in the room. Like, acknowledge that it exists. It's okay that it exists. It's there, and we're going to work
on it. We just have to get it out.
Yeah, I love the team business versus team Anya or team Scott. It's like, no, like, what is our shared objective? What are we trying to achieve? Again, we're going to let go of our own agendas and conflicting priorities. Here's the objective, right, that we hold in place. And then, and maybe even being transparent that here's what I'm doing. In order for us to solve, this person needs to come to the same level. I'm not bringing them higher. I'm not bringing you lower. We actually have to be equal for this conversation to be productive and fair to everybody. Yeah. Am
I
I
think
getting it right?
you got it. Perfect.
Boom! I'm an expert mediator. I, and you know
You
what's so
bet you would
funny?
be a great mediator. You're great at everything you do.
You know what? I'm such a conflict avoider. I know I appear to be very like, boom, let's go and passionate. But in my personal life, and now I'm in my second marriage, I'm a total pushover with the kids.
Yeah, me too.
They
Well,
know
I'm a
who to
conflict
go
avoider.
to. They know who to go to. They're like, yeah, mom will give it to me. She'll take me to the mall. She'll buy me what I want. And I don't like conflicts. I am like, you have a chief peacekeeper, and I'm like, you have to really get to me. I'm always like, I'm out. Let's go have a coffee.
Yeah.
Let's go have some wine. Let's not talk about it. And I have a wife who's Cuban who's like, oh, we're going to talk about this. So,
The yin, the yang, it all works.
I mean, listen, I think second marriages are better than first ones. I think first ones are like trials. And then second one, you realize, oh, maybe it wasn't them. Maybe it's me.
You know what? I think there's a lot that you could
That's the beauty.
relationships.
The
Yeah.
first one, you're like, oh, yeah, it's them. And the second one, you're like, why am I having the same problems with a different person?
Mm.
Oh, who's the common denominator? Maybe
Yeah.
it's me.
I often will tell, when people are like blaming, and again, it's not what we're there to do. We're here to we're here now. What are our
Yeah.
ways to move forward? But I sometimes I'm forced to say, this would be the first marriage, 20-year marriage that I've ever seen where it's just 100% one person's fault. That's just usually not,
Yeah.
the case.
I mean, we always, and that's, I think, important also for leaders to know you have allowed this dynamic and you participated in co creation. So,
Yeah.
what is your part to own? And what can you do, right? It's never between, I mean, we all own it. We are all always co-creating everything in our world.
Yep.
You're a little more philosophical. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. This was awesome. I will link to your account.
Thank
Follow
you.
Scott Levin. He has amazing videos on LinkedIn. And I think we have so much to learn when we understand that who you are at home is who you are at work.
I love that.
It doesn't change. You don't just put on like a suit and you're like, ooh, now I'm gonna go and be all rational.
Yeah.
Emotions are always there, and we have to learn how to mediate it.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Anya. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks.